What if the real reason an avoidant person comes back is not luck, not fate, not some magic timing, but the energy you hold after they step away? Most people lose the moment right there. They panic, they chase, they send long texts, they explain too much, they try to prove love, prove value, prove they are worth staying for. And without even seeing it, they make the distance wider. Because avoidant people do not move closer when they feel pressure. They move closer when they feel space, calm, and emotional safety. That is the part almost nobody truly understands. The second you stop feeding the old pattern, the whole dynamic starts to shift. The person who felt sure they could walk away without feeling your absence starts noticing the silence, starts feeling the change, starts wondering why your energy no longer feels easy to predict. And that can change everything. Stay with me, because this is not about tricks. It is not about mind games. It is not about control. It is about self-respect, emotional strength, and knowing how to carry yourself in a way that becomes harder to forget. And the deeper you understand this, the more the whole story starts to make sense. When distance first appears, the normal reaction is to move fast. Your mind runs in circles. You replay every talk. You search for the exact second things changed. You wonder if you said too much, not enough, or the wrong thing at the wrong time. Then the silence feels heavy, so you try to fix it quickly. That is where most people fall apart. And that is where the old pattern gets stronger.
That usually leads to long emotional messages, repeated check-ins, too much explaining, or trying to force clarity out of someone who was already pulling away. But with an avoidant person, that response often backfires. The more emotional intensity they feel coming toward them, the stronger their need becomes to create even more space. What feels like love to you can feel like pressure to them. What feels like honesty can feel like a demand. What feels like repair can feel like emotional weight they do not know how to hold. That is why silence can be so powerful. Not cold silence, not angry silence, calm silence, steady silence. The kind that says, I am not falling apart because you stepped back. I am still here. I am still grounded. I am still in control of myself. That kind of quiet changes the emotional picture fast. It breaks the pattern they expected. Instead of panic, they meet peace. Instead of chasing, they meet stillness.
And when the usual reaction disappears, curiosity often begins.
This matters more than people think. Avoidant people are often used to others reacting with intensity the second space is created. They expect questions, they expect pressure, they expect emotional pursuit. They expect someone to rush in and close the gap before it grows wider. So when none of that happens, something starts moving inside them. The script they were ready for never shows up. The emotional scene they expected to manage is suddenly missing. And in that missing space, their certainty gets interrupted. They start noticing what is not there. They start feeling the room that silence creates. And that is often the first real turning point. Keep watching, because this quiet shift is where the whole dynamic starts to change.
This is where reflection begins. Because when there is no one forcing the moment, no one flooding them with emotion, no one demanding answers right now, their nervous system can settle. And when pressure drops, defenses often soften. That softer space can create the exact thing pressure destroys: curiosity. They start asking quiet questions in their own head. Why are you not chasing? Why do you seem okay? Why does your energy feel different now? That is when your silence starts to carry weight. Not because silence is a game, but because calm creates contrast, and contrast gets noticed. It also restores value. Constant attention, even when given with love, can become something people slowly expect. But when your attention stops being automatic and becomes intentional, it feels different. It carries more meaning. It feels less like supply and more like presence. And presence always lands harder when it is no longer unlimited. Real silence is not disappearing to punish someone.
It is not acting distant to make them feel guilty. It is not posting fake happiness just to get a reaction. That energy always leaks through. Real silence comes from strength. It comes from deciding that your peace matters more than your urge to chase. It means you keep living. You keep waking up with purpose. You keep showing up for your routines, your work, your body, your friendships, your future. You do not freeze your life and sit in emotional suspension waiting for one message to decide your whole mood. That shift changes everything. Because the moment your life starts moving again, your energy becomes different in a real way. You become less attached to forcing an outcome and more committed to becoming stronger, clearer, and more centered. And that version of you feels completely different. It feels stable. It feels attractive. It feels hard to shake.
Avoidant people are deeply sensitive to emotional pressure, but they are also highly aware of emotional energy. They can feel when someone is waiting. They can feel when someone has made them the center of their emotional world. That weight pushes them back. But when they feel that your life is expanding, that your focus has returned to yourself, that you are not spinning around their distance, something powerful happens. They stop feeling responsible for your emotional state and start seeing you as someone standing firmly in your own life again. And that is often when attention starts turning back toward you, naturally, quietly, and with far more force than begging ever creates. When someone pulls away, many people shrink their whole world around that one situation. Their thoughts get narrow. Their mood depends on one notification. Their energy goes into decoding tiny signals, reading between short replies, and trying to find hidden meaning in every little shift. This is where attraction starts losing air. Because the more your world contracts around one person, the more pressure the connection begins to carry. Self-expansion changes all of that. Instead of making the relationship problem your full-time emotional job, you return to building your own life bigger again. You train harder, you sleep better, you reconnect with old friends, you learn something new, you pour energy into work, money, health, travel, faith, discipline, creativity, whatever brings you back to yourself. You stop asking, how do I get them back? And start asking, how do I become so grounded that whether they return or not, I still win? That question changes everything. Confidence grows when your identity is no longer tied to one person choosing you. Anxiety drops when your life has movement again. And people can feel that difference without you saying a word. They can feel when you are fulfilled and when you are emotionally frozen in place. Avoidant people especially notice this. Emotional dependence often feels heavy to them, even when it is unspoken. But independent energy feels lighter, safer, more attractive. And the more honestly engaged you become in your own growth, the less you need to force anything. Ironically, that is often when your value becomes impossible to ignore. Self-expansion is not pretending to move on while secretly checking your phone every 3 minutes. It is not performing confidence. It is becoming confident again through action. That is why it works. You are not trying to send a message. You are rebuilding your center. And when that happens, value becomes visible without explanation. Instead of trying to convince someone through emotional words, you show growth through your life. Your discipline speaks. Your calm speaks. Your routines speak. Your standards speak.
There is something deeply attractive about a person who keeps evolving instead of collapsing. And this matters because attraction is not rebuilt through pressure. It is rebuilt through perception, through contrast, through seeing someone who once felt easy to take for granted become more focused, more balanced, more self-respecting, more alive. That energy gets attention. It also restores emotional balance. You stop staring at the connection as if it is the only place where joy can exist. You start finding joy outside of it again. Time with good people, new places, better habits, quiet mornings, creative momentum, a life that feels full again. This is not denial. It is the return of self. And when your life becomes richer, you stop reaching from emptiness. You interact, if interaction happens, from wholeness. That changes tone, pacing, and emotional impact. It removes the grasping quality that people feel even through a screen. And once that grasping energy disappears, space opens for respect, interest, and, yes, sometimes desire to grow again. Stay with this, because this is where invisible change becomes visible. Most people miss that shift because they are too busy trying to force visible results. But the invisible shift comes first. Balance is where real power lives. Some people react to distance by becoming ice cold. They shut down, act like they do not care, and think emotional detachment will make the other person chase. Other people go the opposite way. They become too available, too eager, too quick to answer, too much the second attention returns. Both extremes weaken the dynamic. Coldness can feel like rejection. Over-availability can feel like pressure. The strongest position is in the middle. Calm warmth with clear boundaries. That means you stay kind. You stay respectful. You do not become bitter, but you also do not throw away your self-respect just because contact opens again. Your energy stays easy, not desperate, friendly, not clingy, open, but not endless.
This is huge because warmth keeps the emotional door from slamming shut, while boundaries stop the connection from becoming one-sided or draining. If they reach out, you do not punish. You also do not flood the moment with unresolved emotion and heavy need. You keep things light at first, natural, unforced. You let the interaction breathe. That creates safety. At the same time, you do not make yourself available every second of the day as if nothing happened. You still have a life. You still have structure. You still have pace. This balance signals emotional health. It says, I can be kind without losing myself. I can be open without overgiving. I can enjoy the moment without handing over my center. That kind of balance is rare. And because it is rare, it gets noticed fast. If you understand this part, you already move differently from most people. And that difference is exactly what starts changing the story.
When communication starts again, the tone matters more than the words people usually obsess over. Many ruin the moment by trying to turn every conversation into a deep emotional review. They want answers now. They want certainty now. They want the whole connection defined before trust has even had time to breathe again.
That usually kills momentum, especially with someone who already withdraws under emotional weight. Lightness is not shallow. Lightness is smart emotional timing. It means the interaction feels easy enough for the other person to stay present instead of bracing themselves. Short, relaxed conversations often do far more than long, emotional ones. A natural reply, a simple joke, a grounded tone, a little mystery, a little space. These things lower pressure. They make communication feel safe again, and safety is often the first step before closeness. This does not mean your deeper needs do not matter. They do. But timing matters.
Pressure too early makes someone connect to you with stress instead of peace. That is why calm warmth works. It creates a softer environment where connection can rebuild without carrying the full weight of every unresolved feeling at once. Boundaries matter here too. When you answer from your life, not from waiting. When you engage with presence, not with hidden panic. And if they disappear again for a while, you do not spiral right back into old patterns. You stay steady. That steadiness is what slowly retrains the dynamic. It changes what your energy means in their mind. And once your presence starts to feel calm instead of consuming, reconnecting no longer feels like a threat. It starts feeling like relief. Keep listening because this next part explains why pressure ruins more chances than most people realize, and why the absence of pressure can be stronger than any perfect line you could ever send.
One of the biggest triggers for avoidant behavior is emotional pressure. The second interaction starts feeling like duty, demand, or forced emotional labor. Distance begins to look like relief. That is why many people unknowingly push the exact outcome they fear. They ask for answers in the middle of confusion. They ask for promises in the middle of uncertainty. They push for labels in the middle of emotional overwhelm. The other person then feels cornered, not connected. And when someone feels cornered, they do what they know best. They step back. Removing pressure changes the emotional climate completely. Instead of every conversation carrying the weight of the future, the focus returns to the present. Instead of turning each interaction into a test of love, it becomes a moment. Simple, real, easy to stay in. Casual topics, shared humor, small moments that do not demand immediate definition. This is not avoiding reality forever. It is understanding that people open when they feel safe, not when they feel trapped. Many think pushing for clarity will reduce anxiety. Sometimes it does. But when someone is already overwhelmed, pressure only deepens the escape response. Their mind starts linking you with tension. Every message feels like it may become a hard conversation. Every reply feels like it may open another emotional task. So they avoid even more. When you remove that heaviness, the connection can breathe again. It can feel human again. This is the part most people get wrong. They think intensity proves care, but calm often creates more closeness than intensity ever will. And when emotional pressure leaves, space for private reflection comes back. That matters because feelings often become clearer when they are not being dragged into the spotlight. People understand their emotions better when they are not being forced to perform them on command.
For someone who shuts down when overwhelmed, that space can change everything. The less they feel pushed to explain everything instantly, the more room they have to actually feel what your absence means. This is why chasing kills so much hidden movement. It interrupts the natural process. It fills every quiet space before the other person has time to sit with it. But when you stop forcing, they get room to notice, room to compare your calm with the chaos they expected, room to remember what felt good, room to miss what no longer feels guaranteed. That is where emotional gravity begins, not in the loud moment, in the quiet one, in the pause, in the space where your energy no longer runs after them and demands a result. And again, this does not mean becoming fake, distant, or manipulative. It means you stop doing the emotional work for both people. You stop trying to drag clarity into existence. You let life move. You let time reveal what pressure was blocking. And during that time, your job is not to wait in fear.
Your job is to stay anchored, to protect your routines, to keep your standards clean, to keep your heart open without letting your mind run wild. Because the stronger your inner stability becomes, the less you need immediate answers. And strangely, that very lack of desperation is often what creates the conditions for answers to appear. Emotional stability is one of the most attractive traits a person can have, especially around someone who pulls away when things get intense. If your reactions are sharp, unpredictable, or ruled by fear, the whole dynamic starts feeling unstable. And instability makes distance feel necessary. But when you stay grounded, the energy changes. Emotional stability does not mean you feel nothing. It means your feelings do not control the whole show. You can feel hurt and still act with control. You can feel uncertain and still stay measured. You can care deeply and still refuse to collapse into panic.
That kind of inner discipline creates a completely different atmosphere. When communication slows, you do not assume disaster. When attention changes, you do not instantly lose your center. You breathe. You observe. You respond instead of react. And that sends a loud message without loud words. It shows that your peace is not hanging from somebody else's mood. It shows that your life is not fragile. It shows maturity. It shows self-worth. Avoidant people often expect a strong emotional reaction when they create space. Anger, pleading, frustration, reassurance seeking. So when they meet calm instead, the pattern breaks. Your steadiness becomes hard to place inside the old script. And that can create respect faster than emotion ever could. Respect matters here because attraction without respect is unstable. But when someone feels that you are emotionally solid, that your behavior is consistent, that your energy does not swing wildly with every shift, they start to feel safer around you. And safety is often what allows interest to return and deepen. Consistency is what gives emotional strength its real power. Anyone can stay calm for one day. Anyone can act detached for one moment. But grounded energy over time is different. It becomes believable. It becomes part of your presence. Someone who is calm one day and chaotic the next feels hard to trust, hard to read, hard to relax around. But someone who stays respectful, composed, and steady again and again starts to feel reliable. That reliability lowers emotional risk, and lower emotional risk matters a lot to someone who fears pressure, conflict, or losing space. This is why your daily life matters so much more than one perfect message. The way you handle your mornings, the way you keep your standards, the way you return to your body, your goals, your discipline, your friendships. All of that builds internal steadiness, and internal steadiness always shows on the outside, even when you say very little. That quiet proof becomes stronger than any speech. You do not need to announce that you are strong. People feel it when your actions stop contradicting your words. They feel it when your calm is not a performance. They feel it when you are no longer reacting from lack, but responding from self-respect.
Over time, that quiet strength becomes magnetic. Not loud, not flashy, just solid. And solid is rare, especially in emotional situations where most people become messy, impulsive, and easy to predict. This is why emotional resilience shifts the dynamics so deeply. It replaces tension with trust. It replaces drama with relief. It makes reconnecting feel less dangerous. And when somebody starts linking your presence with peace instead of pressure, the door opens wider than most people realize. Scarcity changes perception. That is human nature. What is always available starts feeling normal, even if it is valuable. Attention works the same way.
If your time, your energy, your replies, your care, and your emotional access are available without limit, people can begin to treat them like a constant. Not because you have no worth, but because the mind adapts quickly to what it thinks will always be there. This is why selective attention matters. Not as a game, as a boundary, as a sign that your energy has value. When your life becomes full again, your attention naturally becomes more intentional. You are not always ready. You are not always online. You are not always rearranging your schedule at the smallest pull. You have things to do, goals to meet, people to see, a life to protect, and that makes your presence land differently. Conversations feel more meaningful because they are not endless and automatic. Moments of connection feel more alive because they are not constant and predictable. This often sparks something powerful: curiosity.
People start noticing the absence of what they once assumed would always be available, and that changes the emotional weight of even small contact. They feel the change in access. They feel the difference in availability. And suddenly, your presence carries weight again. Scarcity also creates room for longing. Too much closeness without space can feel heavy, but a healthy amount of distance allows thought, memory, and appreciation to build. It gives the other person space to actually feel you, to sense your absence, to notice your value. Not because you are withholding love, but because you are no longer handing yourself over without limit. Now here is the key part. Scarcity only works when it is real. If you are pretending to be busy, but secretly centering your whole day around whether they reach out, the energy still feels needy underneath. Real scarcity comes from a life that is honestly active and meaningful. You are not trying to create mystery. You are becoming a person with depth, structure, and direction. That difference matters.
Because when your time is actually full, when your attention is actually earned, when your emotional energy is no longer flowing endlessly in one direction, the connection becomes more balanced by default. You stop overgiving. You stop oversharing. You stop trying to secure closeness through constant access. And in that healthier space, appreciation can grow. This also teaches people how to treat you. When you treat your own time as valuable, others are more likely to do the same. When you protect your peace, others feel that boundary. When you no longer make yourself emotionally cheap through endless availability, your presence gains substance. And that changes how every interaction lands. A text feels different. A reply feels different. A short moment feels different because it is no longer surrounded by too much energy. It has room. It has shape. It has meaning. This is where ordinary contact starts becoming emotionally charged again in the best way.
Not through drama, but through intention. Not through fear, but through value. And once that shift begins, the connection often starts pulling itself forward without you forcing it.